everything that I know. Says I gotta go, tired of going solo. But I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am. This is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to go. I'm not the one with two star hands. Giving him the best of everything that's left of the life inside this man. I've been born again.
Dave, guess what? You know, for once I thought, this is so funny. You know, I thought for once, yes, I've got the red button. I've got the mute off. I've got everything is clicking. I look up, you don't have the monitor flipped over. It's always something.
Yeah, somebody. I just feel the Lord speaking to somebody's heart today about being an intern here, putting on the podcast. We need a producer here.
You just feel the Lord speaking to somebody's heart. Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry if that sounds sacrilegious. Forgive me, please.
I've heard that term a whole lot on worse situations. You know. Oh, man, that's good. Hey, welcome, everyone. Fresh Black Coffee, or not so fresh. Man, that's funny.
In my defense, I have seen worse Robert Tilton videos.
Oh.
We're not talking about it.
Thank you. Let's not go there. Let's not even enter the entry of that discussion. Oh, man. Hey, I wanted to start today with just the idiocy of the liberal mind.
Yeah.
The hive mind, you know. This is from New Mexico, okay? This shows how liberals think, okay? Mm-hmm. There's been a wave of violence in Albuquerque, okay? Mm-hmm. Albuquerque, New Mexico, a wave of violence. And what was that TV show again you talked about? Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad. It was filmed in Albuquerque, and it's about Albuquerque, basically, is where this all took place in Breaking Bad. And it really is apparently really bad. I have a niece that lives in Albuquerque, and they say crime is really bad in Albuquerque. But so the governor, New Mexico governor, has overstepped her authority, actually, and she is suspending temporarily, she says, suspending concealed carry across Albuquerque, the city, the one city in the state, which is weird that you can suspend concealed carry in one city and not the whole state, and without, well, first of all, it's against the Constitution, and secondly, she's gone around the legislature.
Yes.
I mean, she's violated all kinds of things.
All kinds.
And she even admits that that's the case. But listen to this. She expects the order to face legal challenges, but that she believed she had to act in response to recent gun-related deaths, such as an 11-year-old boy who was shot and killed outside a minor league baseball stadium early this week. She says, when New Mexicans are afraid to be in crowds, to take their kids to school, to leave a baseball game, when their right to exist is threatened.
Oh, is that a right?
The right to exist?
Yes. I mean, evidently everything's up to the mayor or the governor.
Yeah, well, their whole right to exist is threatened by the prospect of violence at every turn. Something is very wrong, Lujan Grisham said in a statement. Mm-hmm. The suspension was classified as an emergency public health order and applies to open and concealed carry in most public places, excluding police and licensed security guards. Now, the restriction is connected to a threshold for violent crime rates met only by the Albuquerque area, where the crime is high. But see, I'm going to get to what the crimes are, okay, but which makes this whole stupid. But anyway, here's what violators can face. Violators could face civil penalties and fines up to $5,000. The governor's spokesman, Caroline Sweeney, said the governor said state police are responsible for enforcing the order, but she acknowledged that not all law enforcement officials, including the district attorney for Albuquerque, agree with it. So the DA and sheriff both disagree with it. This is unenforceable.
Yes.
It's against the Constitution because
Yes.
they're afraid they're going to get sued.
Yes.
They're going to be the ones that get sued, not the governor.
Because they would be enforcing the violating of constitutional rights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, I welcome the debate and fight about how to make New Mexicans safer.
No, she doesn't.
She said, no, I know.
There's no debate. She's just being a dictator here.
Right.
Yes, we will take away their rights now, and then we will discuss it.
Yeah. He said the sheriff, Bernalillo County Sheriff John Allen said in a statement Friday night that he has concerns about the order, but is prepared to cooperate to address gun violence.
Who's that, the mayor?
No, the sheriff.
Oh, the sheriff.
The sheriff is concerned.
Concerned but willing to enforce this,
Right, the order.
this dictate?
Right. He's prepared to cooperate
Yeah.
with the order.
In other words, I'll shove them in the gas chamber even though I'm against killing Jews.
Right. Yeah. He says, I am wary of placing my deputies in a position that could lead to civil liability conflicts as well as the potential risk posed by prohibiting law-abiding citizens from their constitutional rights to self-defense. Which, he nails it. He explains exactly what's going on. But listen to this. Here's what actually happened, okay? Here's why she's doing this. She cited several recent shootings in Albuquerque. Wednesday's shooting outside Albuquerque Isotopes Field that left 11-year-old Froyland Villegas dead and a woman critically wounded. The two were inside a vehicle that was sprayed with bullets as people were leaving the game. On August 13th, a 5-year-old was shot and killed as she slept with four teens entered a mobile home community in two stolen vehicles and opened fire on a home. Another deadly shooting took place in August when a 14-year-old used his father's gun to shoot and kill his friend. Now, you tell me how any of those three incidents had anything to do with open and concealed carry. In fact, open and concealed carry could have mitigated those if a concealed carry or open carry person had been around to shoot back at the 14s in the car.
Yes. Yeah.
To defend.
An armed society is a polite society. Period.
It's ridiculous. This is ludicrous. This whole thing is silly.
Yes.
And she said, shooting outside Albuquerque baseball stadium leaves 11-year-old boy and a woman boy dead and a woman injured. And Senator Greg Baca, GOP, of course, he denounced the governor's firearms suspension.
That's a U.S. senator?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's the state senator.
State senator.
He's a top-ranked Republican. He did not. He said a child is murdered. The perpetrator is still on the loose, and what does she do? She targets law-abiding citizens with an unconstitutional gun order.
Yeah,
exactly. He nails it. This is stupid. She is. But I'll tell you what she's doing. Okay, she is politicking for a place somewhere higher up.
Oh, sure.
In the Democratic ranks.
Yes.
She is stroking the Democratic beast so she can move up in the ranks and be a pet of the Democratic hierarchy.
Because one of her predecessors, Governor Napolitano, female, was, I believe, made Homeland Security under Obama. Yeah. Coming from being governor of New Mexico. They like picking Democrat Midwestern governors. Sebelius for Health and Human Services, and you got the Coloradans, But let me go conspiracy theory a little bit on you. You remember the bomb threats that were popular in the 70s, right? We hadn't seen that for decades. All of a sudden, school starts in Oklahoma. There's bomb threats. Right. Every first day, all over the state, rural. Okay, there's no conspiracy here. There's no coordinating. And then first Friday night football games. People are shot in Little Choctaw, Oklahoma, in the little corner of rural Oklahoma County, and then in Tulsa here, and other places. So it's just too ironic. And it's targeting schools, because what will schools do? They will lock down, because they're run by liberals, and the liberals are just looking for an excuse to exert more control, more authority.
Right.
I think there's something at play here.
Oh no, I agree. I agree. It reminds me, and I hate to do this, but it reminds me of the predicate to the Nazi takeover of Germany in 1932. Is basically when it happened, when Hitler took power. They slowly, they manufactured these various crimes. They had a young Jewish kid assassinate one of the German hierarchy in Paris, and it was a setup. They fomented this in this Jewish kid's mind, and then he ended up, and they used that to spark anti-Semitism.
Yes,
and then everything, and then it boiled up into the Reichstag. Burning of the Reichstag,
yes.
which basically the Jews never did.
They never did.
It was an inside job. The Nazis basically did it,
right,
themselves,
to give Hitler more power, because all of a sudden you have no place to hold Congress.
And then he basically exerted martial law,
emergency powers, Yes,
and basically took control and never gave them up.
Yes,
and ended up with dictatorship and took away everybody's rights. They took away. Guns was one of the first things they did. They took everybody's guns away, and as I explained to y'all before, my grandmother used to distribute an anti-Nazi party newspaper, and
so your rebellious streak comes by you, honestly.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, and the Gestapo came, took her papers, poured gasoline on them or lighter fluid, and burned the papers right there on the street corner in front of her. So, and
in public for everybody else to know.
Right, right. My mother was a little girl and watched them burn the papers. So these are real things, and history has a way of repeating themselves.
Now keep in mind. Reports have come in that there is at least 25 chaos actors, FBI agents, in the January 6th crowd.
Yeah, I've heard there are more than 100.
Yeah,
actually in the crowd, but maybe 25 chaos actors.
And Ray Epps was the one that happened to get identified and videotaped, and he's still not indicted.
I know that is weird, and Enrique Tarrio has gotten essentially life in prison, if you can believe it. I mean, I don't get what's wrong with people. I don't understand how this is. In fact, I want to get a free Enrique T-shirt.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
good point.
That's ridiculous. Here's an Afro-Cuban guy, wasn't there. Really didn't know what first happened. Oh, here's the other thing. First of all, the injustice was he tore down a BLM flag.
Yeah, months earlier,
burned it. He got put in jail and fined for burning a BLM flag when they were tearing down and burning American flags.
Well, no, let's be. It was because it was the property of somebody else. He vandalized somebody else's property.
Well, you don't think American flags belong to anybody?
Right. I agree with that. But I'm saying technically that's what they got him on.
Well, no, I know. But it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because
it was selective prosecution.
Well, hello. I mean, that's the point. Yeah. What are you arguing about? I mean, they're tearing down somebody else's American flag. Right. In fact, there's videos of them tearing the American flags out of the hands of people on the street, beating them up, and then taking the flag and burning them all the time.
There's
no
video of the Lake Street Police Precinct House in Minneapolis being burnt down, and nothing's happened.
Yeah, and they let those people out.
In fact, they told them just let it burn. Yeah. So, here's what's going on.
Yeah, and in fact, the people there were some people prosecuted for those acts of vandalism, violence. But
did they get 22 years in prison?
No, exactly. They're all out. They're all out.
Yes.
In Chicago, in Portland, in all of these areas, they've all been released. And what's her name? Our vice president was out there speaking on their behalf. I mean, it's silly. And then,
she was raising money to bail him out of jail.
Right. And yet Enrique Tarrio has gotten, 30 years? I think it's 30 years.
Yeah. Well, no, they asked for 30. He got 22.
Oh, they were generous and gave him only 22.
So,
I mean, are you kidding me? Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
January 6th, that afternoon, I was watching InfoWars because they were right there on the Capitol Mall doing live. They actually had a nice perch where they could view everything. And Alex Jones, comes back up to the balcony there where they're, he said, Enrico Tarrio, he got it yesterday. The rest of us got just totally stumped. He told me last night, Alex said, this looks like a setup. I'm getting out of town. Right. And Alex was like, come on,
And it didn't help him, did it? He said, exactly. Get out of town. This is a setup. Get out of town. And yet they still got it.
Yeah. No, the best thing Alex has going for him, they're still trying to get Owen Schroyer on some things. But Alex literally diverted people to a rally on the northeast side of the Capitol, trying to draw people away. As the rush is happening, as the barricades collapse and everything, he actually was doing probably the most patriotic law and order thing. Yeah. And because it was still a right to, peaceful assembly. Yeah, but...
I guess the statement, we're going to walk to the Capitol peacefully and peacefully assemble. That's code for we're going to burn the place down. Oh, yeah. I mean, these people, they're, as you said, selective prosecution, selective hearing, selective everything. The thing that bothers me the most, I'm not surprised, and I'm almost not. There's an anger, okay? There's an anger and something, but I'm beyond anger, okay? I can't even get mad at him anymore, okay? It's more, as Mr. T would say, I pity the fools. Yeah. I really do. I pity the fools. Who I'm really angry at is the conservatives, the Republicans, and the church. The church, pastors and Christians that still don't see what's happening. That the ones who could make a difference, the ones who could bring about the change, who could turn this nation around in a heartbeat, but won't do it. That is what really chaps my behind. When I go to a church and they're busy building their local community, their little body is the most important thing on earth, and not seeing it's that same vision I had. I continually have it. I continually talk about renovating the living room while your house is burning down. I keep seeing this. These churches renovating a living room, where we're baptizing, we're leading people to Christ, we're doing this, we've got this program, that program, we Sunday school program and youth program here, we're doing that, we're taking trips to Israel, we're taking trips here, and here, we're doing this, we're doing that, and all around them, the city, our schools are getting worse and worse and worse.
Okay, you spent years with YWAM.
Yeah.
And you
Youth
bring
with a Mission.
Youth with a Mission, and you're hosting a over there in Germany and Holland, right? And you would have these young college kids come,
right?
And they'd be on fire for Jesus. They'd be doing a lot of good, but then they go back to some liberal American university, and they can't say anything because the professor might give me a bad grade on my paper. And this is what I'm getting at: is we got a lot of rich kids going over there and doing their, evangelism of what they should be doing on Fire for Christ, but they don't want to risk their reputation.
It's not just a lot of them. A lot of our summer of service, they're called SOS, were coming from ORU.
Yes.
Or Roberts, or Biola, and different, different Christian Wheaton, things like that. So it's not just they were coming from secular universities. Some were going from secular, or churches were sending their youth groups. And I don't know if I told this story before. I remember I led a team to Uganda. This was 1984, and I had a young kid, and he had been with us in YWAM. He had been with us for about a year, and then he went to Uganda on this team. And then afterwards, but he knew his time was up. He was going back to America. So he roomed with me in this hut there in Uganda. And I came into the hut one afternoon, and he was there on his knees, and the guy was just bawling his eyes out. And I'm like, what is going on? I said, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? And he was just crying away. He was probably 20 years old, 19, 20. And he said, I'm heartbroken. I'm terrified. I'm going back to America, and I'm going to lose what I have here, what I see here. I'm going to go back and become just like everybody else again.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to experience and feel the power of God.
Yeah.
Or see the things I see and experience what I'm experiencing anymore, and I'm going to get caught up in the cares of the world, and it's just going to be. And he and I'm saying, well, you don't have to. He's, you don't have to do that. You can, just fight it.
See, when I was pastoring in Minneapolis, I was back in my hometown, Little Falls, 2 hours north, and I'm talking to the Youth for Christ director. And he said, my frustration is I see these kids from this affluent church, north edge of town, they're nice suburbs, and they go turn the world on fire for Christ, and then they come back for their senior year of high school, and they become the plastics from the Mean Girls movie. And just become they become not just co-opted by the culture in all the nastiness, but become the worst part of it. So
well, I'll tell you where I think the real, and I saw this years and years ago, and I believe it all goes back to Jesus' prayer in the garden in John 17. Mm-hmm. Father, I pray that you would not take them from the world, but protect them from the world. Keep them in the world, but not of the world. Oh. And see, here's why. And I know people always get upset with me or have gotten upset because I'm not an advocate for Christian schools. Mm-hmm. I think this is going to be blasphemy. Bad Eddie. I think Christian schools are the downfall of Christianity in America, believe it or not.
Okay.
I mean, and here's my reasoning. When we took the kids out of public school, it's not just that we took the kids out. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But what we also did, we took the parents out. Mm-hmm. We took the parents out of the PTA. We took the parents out of the
school board.
The school. Thank you. The school board. Any type of influence in the school. And so what do we hear all the time?
Right.
Well, the public schools are going to hell. And I always say, yes, because you sent them there. Well, and every time you take one group out, it gets worse. And then you take another group out, it drops worse. And it keeps happening.
To use Jesus' parables to explain, we remove the salt and light.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and people don't get me. They think for some reason that I just hate Christian schools. No. When we came to America from Europe, I made my kids sign a document the contract. I may have told you this before.
Right.
It says,
A few times.
I, Talitha Huff, I, Eli Huff, against my father's wishes, have chosen to go to Christian school against my dad's wishes. I will never, ever complain one day. And then they had to sign this thing. And I held it, and they never did.
Yeah.
Her senior year, my daughter, they transferred their junior year. Both of them transferred their junior year to public schools. But my daughter visited my parents. My dad told me later one day that my daughter confessed that my dad was right. That don't tell it. Yeah. Yeah. You know, everyone, my dad. That was one of the worst things you could ever say. A kid, dad was right.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan's most famous 9 words. So these are the most famous or worst 3 words. Dad was right.
Yeah.
But anyway, because they saw it, and here's why. Here was my reasoning why this is. When children see public school kids and parents or teachers, and they're messed up and they have issues, they can always say, and you can always tell them, well, they're lost. They don't know Jesus. So they have that to relate to. And you can say, pray for them or try to be the light in the darkness. When you go to Christian schools and you see kids that are bad, messed up, or teachers that are jerks or are messed up, and there were some, trust me, there were some teachers that had some real issues, which really affected my kids.
Yeah.
And then what do you tell them? These are the Christian teachers, right? So it's hard, and that's why a lot of times you have kids that see that. Now, some kids can navigate through that and it doesn't bother them. Other kids don't see that, and they resent it, and they reject their faith because of what they see. Well, these people are hypocrites. I'm not going to be a part of that. And all they're doing is longing for what's out there.
Yeah. I want to address one of the points you made earlier about churches, wake up, realize what's going on here. We've discussed this before, so I'm going to jump over a lot of it. You and I both know there is no perfect church government. The scripture says, and the government shall be upon Christ's shoulders.
Right.
And until Christ is actively running the church, it's going to have imperfections because men are running it.
Right.
And there's no form of church government. There are many of them. None of them are perfect. It still comes down to people. But I want to say, Eddie, we're at a point we've never been in Western society of churches being run by sole proprietorship structures. That means the pastor and maybe a couple token people on the board versus annual elections, congregation form of church government where you have annual board elections, everybody who's a member votes, and then you usually have something where you're requiring turnover in it. What happens is there are some subtle changes in priorities because every pastor wants to have a mega church, and numbers are really big. In programs, if they don't accomplish the pastor's personal goals, they sometimes get put aside. In a congregation form of church government, you have massive volunteerism, massive, and actually in leadership, because they answer to the church board, not the pastor. And there are certain things the pastor no longer does because it could impact his long-term goals for his career advancement. I think that's part of the problem. Now, there's problems with congregation form. There's problems with the liturgical, Methodist deal where the bishop over an area appoints pastors. They're all problems with it, but we're just exchanging some problems for others. But I'm just wondering here, Eddie, what does it take? Where do we get our Dietrich Bonhoeffers in this generation that are willing to stand up against government corruption?
It's going to have people that are devoted to God and Christ alone. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take a shaking. I personally, I reject both forms of church government. I reject church government. Okay. Like I said, and that may be my hippie days.
You're getting real close to where I'm at, because I think that the whole Constantine model of church corrupted it. The beginning, having a career professional.
Yeah.
Because I believe, I love the house church model. And yet there's, problems with it. But you know what? It's sincere. It's people coming to the right reasons, and money doesn't get in the way.
See, Calvary Chapel, if you go to Jesus Revolution, it grew when, if you see the movie and you look at it, when all of the elders from that original church, right, Calvary Chapel there in Costa Mesa, when those original elders all walked out.
Several of them did.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to say all. I think one guy hung around.
One guy got up, went and sat next to him.
Right. So basically, let's just accept that. And so basically, there you were left with Chuck and the one guy, and then him and a bunch of hippies. Okay, so it basically started a new group of people that were looking to Chuck to teach us, lead us. Okay, and then it grew from there. The one I came out, which was an offshoot of Calvary, Jesus Chapel, it was founded by one of the original young hippie leaders of Calvary Chapel, who we asked to come there, and so he started that. Right. He was actually the founder of the Vineyards. Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
anyway.
And he was a main character in the movie Jesus Revolution. Frisbee, right?
No. Oh, Lonnie stayed out there. No.
Oh, I thought Lonnie went to Vineyard.
No.
Okay, Ken Gullickson.
Ken Gullickson. Now, Lonnie joined Ken later. But,
gotcha.
But, yeah. But anyway, Ken went and started this. But anyway, so I'm trying to keep from chasing rabbits over there. What happened?
Good for you, Eddie.
The Vineyard. But anyway, so it started just as a Friday night fellowship, like that did. Had no pastor, just 800 kids every Friday night from high schools all over town, the UTEP,
right,
University of Texas, El Paso, worshiping on Friday night. That's all it was a Friday night fellowship. And then a bunch of us didn't have a church, a lot of us from Catholic churches, Baptist, Methodist churches, where our parents went, but we didn't really go. And so
they made you cut your hair.
Yeah. Yeah, so we ended up, some of them were pastors' kids, so we ended up, 25 of us started this little Sunday, 25 of us started going every Sunday.
Yeah.
And then more and more grew, and it ended up being 4 different churches or campuses around the city. Grew into 4 different churches.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that's how it all grew. But in what they did, then we ended up choosing elders, older men that were coming, and he needed helping us. And then we, out of our group of hippies, we selected 9 deacons.
Yeah.
And everybody we did a vote of these, there were like 14 names, and out of those, 9 of us were chosen.
Yeah.
And I made the cut. I ended up being one of the 9. I was only saved for 9 months, and there I am. I'm a deacon. A youngest deacon was 19 years old, a 19-year-old hippie kid.
Yeah.
He's a deacon already, but this is how everything got started.
Sure.
And it wasn't, and we'd go to these meetings, and we really didn't know how to run a church. The three elders, the pastor and these 2 older guys, basically threw stuff out there. Here's what we think. What do you think? And they were talking all this money about, we got to find a larger place because we can't.
Right.
And we're freaked out. They're talking about this is going to cost us $25,000, and we think, what? $25,000? And they're kind of laughing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how it all started. But there was no formal, no corporation, none of the.
Right. Well, that's what I'm getting at. Grace Fellowship.
Right.
Bob Yanyan and Ken Surya said, it just started as a home Bible study. Yeah. It actually was some people that were in an Assembly God church were part of it, but not just them. But you had that. And the Catholic Church in my hometown, they was set up kind of a deacon system. They were called guilds. They had 12 guilds for 12 months of the year. And if you were on that guild, that was your month to serve, because that's what a deacon did, was they served, meeting material needs of people. I went up to Jesus People to visit a friend of mine, Jesus People USA in Chicago. Japuza. And my friend Pat Peterson eventually became part of their rotating deacons they had called Deacon of the Week, because they rotated these duties. But here's the thing. What does Ephesians 4 says? You got to build up the body and prepare them for service. Mm-hmm. And when you've got a sole proprietorship church, some slick talking preacher that he's just coming in town to start his church and hang out a shingle and build his empire, and you've got retired preachers in this city right now who have multi-million-dollar portfolios, and the church finances. You
know what I think the key to Calvary Chapel has been? Mm-hmm. That you don't have Chuck Jr. running the Calvary Chapel.
See, that's another part of it. I talk about
nepotism is the death of.
You remember The Godfather?
Yeah.
When he says, "Call together the 5 families," right? You had the 5 families in this town, and all of them handed down their ministry to their kids. I mean, even Lucia Broadcasting is the Summerall kids. Mm-hmm. It become family-run businesses. Right. And I'm just saying,
we're meddling now, but we don't care.
Well,
no, we don't care. I don't
keep
care.
in mind, with a church board, you have these problems, just like Chuck Smith dealt with. The board pushing back. They will threaten to have a vote and vote him out. And so there are problems with all of them. But I'm just saying, to your answer, where are the churches? If you're building an earthly empire, right, then your priority is going to be markedly different.
It's so funny. You have two problems. You have the churches that end up becoming, as you said, almost businesses, corporations, family-run businesses. Mm-hmm. But then you have others that I believe are sincere in their desire to preach the gospel, but they're myopic. They're so focused on themselves, us and our kingdom, our body. We're going to grow this church, and we're going to make this church have this impact because we're so important. We're going to have the biggest reach in the world. We're that important. And we're ignoring, and we don't even see. It's like we've got these blinders, and we don't see what the city is doing, what the school boards are doing. We don't see what the state legislature is doing. We don't see what the Congress is doing, the Senate and the presidency. And if anybody doesn't speak just right or so and so, we're not going to vote for them. We're afraid to say anything that might rattle our heavy tithers because. Yeah, there you go. No, seriously, because I know it. You know why we don't want to, and it's not because I'm afraid of getting paid or getting, but it's because that's going to hinder our growth.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is I don't question the sincerity of these pastors' desire to minister.
Yeah.
I just think the ministry is misfocused. Their focus is too self-centered. The ministry, they're missing it, and eventually, it's like the saying: when they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I'm not a Jew.
Eddie,
when they came for the Jehovah's Witnesses, when they came homosexuals,
you're dancing all around it here, and I want to just say what it is.
Okay, say what it is.
When you got one person running it, all you got is one vision. And a church ought to be the passion and the vision and the zeal and the calling of many. And if you don't have room for everybody to do their vision, or the pastor says, well, if we allow you to pursue that vision, it might hamper my vision. And then you got competition going on. And I think you've got to be able to allow everybody to fulfill the calling, the vision, the directive, the mandate that God has for them. And they shouldn't have to leave your church to reach out to their mission.
Yeah.
Because that's what church is. It's everybody pulling together every calling, every gift, every directive. You know, and that's what I think it is. I think when you've got a sole proprietorship, you only have room for one vision.
Yeah. Yeah, we you know, when I think of, you know, we do these youth outreaches and we think, you know, we're excited because we had, let's say, 1,000 kids show up at our youth event. Okay. But you still had 50,000 that didn't come to your youth event that are being influenced by TPS and the teachers that are teaching CRT, that are teaching and not allowing things to be taught in school that are detrimental. Things are being taught that are detrimental to their lives, future lives. And we think we're excited because we had 100, 200, 300, let's say, come to an event, and 50 to 100 got saved. We're excited.
Yeah.
Okay, we're excited. When one is saved, it's a great thing. But we're leaving so many that we could influence and save and reach by being in there. I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think you understand.
Yeah.
It's just hard for me to. I'm trying. I'm dancing. I'm dancing. I'm trying not to.
No, I think you've got to have room for more than just one vision in a church. So I've got some good news.
Okay.
And to preface this, I'm going to quote Nathan Dahm, who sat here a month or two ago. He no longer refers to the Democrat Party and that ideology as liberal, because they're not. They are leftist.
Oh, yeah, no, they're not liberal.
They are leftist. Well, recently, one of my heroes, free-thinking man, Joe Rogan, he's had a couple of guests on. By the way, he had Oliver Anthony on, and Oliver redeemed himself quite a bit. It was really good, because I was a little bit harsh with the way he communicated things that I thought left a wrong impression.
I was trying to bring you down a little bit last week because you were kind of harsh.
Right, but so that was good. But here's the other thing. He had Bill Maher on.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And, oh, my God, I wanted to stand and shout because, you know, look, I respect the classical liberal. Because you and I both in the 70s were. That was, right? But you got people like Bill Maher. You have people like Joe Rogan. You got, what's his name? The lawyer from Harvard. Why can't I think of it?
Oh, yeah, I know who you mean. I can't think of it. Dershowitz, Alan.
Yeah, Alan Dershowitz and that. They're classical liberal, and they're standing opposed to the leftist things because they know that this bunch that took over the Democrat Party are nothing but tyrannical, fascist. You know, it's horrible.
Yeah, they've seen it.
And so, anyway, I want to encourage you. Bill Maher is speaking out against the corrupting of the Democrat Party. And I think you're seeing it in a softer way with Bobby Kennedy Jr.
He's another one. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
See, all of us are from the same generation. I mean, I believe I will be a hippie till I die. I was a hippie, and I'm proud of it. We all saw the same movies.
Yeah.
And what I would invite everyone to go back and watch every one of those movies. Logan's Run, Soylent Green,
Billy Jack.
Not Billy Jack, not as much as these others, because these others made a more of a statement again about society. One in particular was what is it, Man in the Streets, or oh man, I discussed it with somebody the other day, but did we talk about it? Wild in the Streets, and in all of these, it talked about the youth wanting to rebel against the older society. And the strange thing about it is that the society that they were rebelling against turns out today to be the leftists. In other words, the Democrat Party and the leftists, the progressives, are actually, they've become everything that those movies were about. Even, and in the black community, what I want to say to the black community, Shaft, Foxy Brown, Superfly, all of those films, what they call blaxploitation films in the late 60s, early 70s, they've all come to fruition. But what happened, they're actually speaking about what's taking place in the black community. They had the white politician with the black preacher and the black politician all keeping the black people in their place, and they were playing a game on them.
Yeah.
And it's the Democrats.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to a T, and yet they've given into it. They've won. They actually have won. Back in the early 70s, in fact, this friend of mine, one of my closest fraternity brothers, he and I argue vehemently all the time. And he was one of the main ones that was so into these films and all of this. And he now is one of the ones who supports that whole Democrat system. And he doesn't even see that he has basically accepted everything that he was against in the 70s. Yeah. He has just bought into it, and he just worships the Democrat Party. That shows how successful the Democrats have been. And I think it started with Bill Clinton, but Obama has pretty much is the one who really, for some reason, they were so happy to have a black president, even though he wasn't really black. He was manufactured. Yeah. He was everything about him was manufactured.
Well, yeah. I want to say, and the reason I mentioned Billy Jack there, because we started talking about New Mexico and the Indian tribes and that. And so Billy Jack, that was a movie where you called out prejudice in that, but not from the typical black-white, you know. It was because the Indians were treated different. Right. And the hippies.
What I was explaining to her is like, I don't know if you remember Logan's Run? Farrah Fawcett. It was this utopian.
I never really watched it. Okay. Yeah, it's a futuristic.
It's movie. A futuristic utopian thing, but it was all about government control.
Yeah,
and it was this, and then of course Soylent Green was another.
Oh
one.
God, yeah,
Soylent Green. But all of these spoke of how the government controlled every. Oh, another one, more recent one. Well, Fahrenheit 451 is one, but then there's one that was even more recent. I'll let it go because I can't. But these are so perfectly typifying exactly what the Democratic Party is headed.
One more movie to add to that. Network, Peter Finch.
I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
The beautiful thing is because it starts out with a revolt, and then you don't realize till the end you've slowly been co-opted. To the end, one of his last things he says is basically he endorses this machine that he was rebelling against. They co-opt him, but they do it so subtly. Watch it again, and watch how slowly and subtly they brainwash you. You know?
And honestly, that's probably what's happened with the Republicans.
Tell me more.
Well, you know, it's like from 2016 when Trump won the White House. And ever since then, they have been slowly biting chunks out of his support. And it's funny, I'm seeing more and more people all of a sudden just give up on supporting him. I think they've been eaten away, and they're slowly starting, the way you can tell, they're slowly starting to make excuses for not supporting him?
I will say this. The structural power base definitely is what you're saying there, because I watch exactly the way Ronna McDaniel, Romney McDaniel, she's just outright against Trump now. And Trump's the one that appointed her to that office.
Right.
And but you look at the polls, look at the heartland, the regular voters. They are solid, even more solid.
Oh, yeah. His people, that 39% that he had, 35 to 39%, that was his people. Mm-hmm. Then you've got the other, probably what brings him up to, say, 40% or whatever. That's independents. I think that have come there now.
Yeah.
But a lot of the, and what's really crazy is the Christians that find all kinds of reasons to, well, he's too angry, he's too this, he's that, he's vile, he's this, they find all kinds of reasons to not support him. I've gotten into discussions with Dr. Piper.
Yeah,
arguments online. Where and see, he wasn't a supporter initially.
Right.
And he then he was invited. He was invited to be a guest and actually sat at the table on the same side with him. Yeah. And at that point, he turned a bit and came back and was actually impressed. I don't think, but you could kind of tell he was never he didn't fully buy in. He accepted it. And then now he's back to back to.
So 4 months after Trump becomes president, Dr. Piper and I were eating lunch at the Republican Men's Club luncheon. He was the speaker that day. We just kind of getting acquainted and stuff, and he stands up to speak. And this is right after, I think, Gorsuch had gotten in. And I don't know if it was probably before the next guy. But he said, before I get into today's remarks, I need to clear the table with something. Regarding Donald Trump, crow never tasted so good. He literally said, I'm eating crow. He's totally now, at that point, on board for Trump.
Right.
And then he told the story about being invited to Trump Tower and how he got it. It was just the weirdest way it happened. And then we talked about it a couple of years later, and he embellished a little bit more on, all the things that had happened there. But the problem you have, and I know because I've been part of this machine when I ran Santorum's Oklahoma campaign, and we've seen is we're trying to treat these people like they're applying to become the pastor of our local church.
Yeah, that's what Jared Falwell was saying.
Yeah, and I remember I ran Phil Graham's campaign, very short, in 95, 96, where he finally has said, I'm not running for national preacher here, because he got sick of the litmus test that the religious right was trying to put on, because Phil Graham was one, he's going to call it out. He had some fight in him, not to the degree that Trump has. But when you have, these people that are willing to throw the rest of the bunch out to save themselves, guys like Karl Rove and G.W. Bush, and no, I'm an enlightened Republican. I'm not like these Neanderthal Republicans. That's what they do. And now, Limbaugh, to his credit, saw it and called it out, because he had some people, businessmen, wanting to play golf with him, and he finally said, okay. And they were at the third tee, and they finally opened up with him and said, we got to get Sarah Palin off this ticket. This was right after the convention in 2008. Why? Oh, she's, horrible. Look what the media's doing to her. Look what they're doing, and he stops. This is after he tees off. He says, so what you're telling me is you want to let the media pick our vice president? No, I'm not saying that at all. Oh, yeah, you are. Because if you bow down to this, they will own you. And you have already said you're trying to kiss up to them. The beautiful thing about Trump is he finally showed us a conservative who wasn't going to kiss up to the media.
Exactly. And that's But see, that's the problem we have. In the Democrat Party, they toe the line. That's our guy. We may not be happy, but that's our guy. Until someone else steps up or something gets to a point where we see it's impossible, which I believe probably will still happen.
Yeah.
I'm still convinced Michelle
and
Michelle Obama's the one that's going to.
And the reason why they toe the line is because there's a litany of unexplained dead bodies in the Democrat leadership. I'm going to call it out. I mean, the Vince Foster thing is Jeffrey Epstein, Obama's 2 household servants who've recently died. And now we find out, because last week, Tucker Carlson's interviewing a guy who said, we had multiple affairs, Obama and I, a known homosexual.
Yeah.
And he's talking about,
that's not really new. That's been around for a long time. But now,
this was the first major interview that discussed it.
Right. But the guy has come out before, but this is the first time he's really come out because it's Tucker that we're broadly hearing about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, that's one of the problems or the differences between the Democrats, Republicans, Christians, and the world.
Yeah. That
the world will circle the wagons around their people. It reminds me years ago of Bob Mumford, great Christian teacher, when they were asking about, Christians, and he said, we sing Onward Christian Soldier, and, he talks about Christian soldiers, and he says, the problem with Christian soldiers, they come back wounded from battle. And what do? We finish them off. Yeah. Instead of consoling and healing them and taking care of them, we finish them off. Yeah. And my example, the reason that I support Trump, I support certain people, is because as it was in the Old Testament, it was people like Nebuchadnezzar, it was Cyrus, it was Darius, it was these people that God used to save Israel. Yeah. It wasn't some of your kings of Judah or Israel, the northern or southern kingdom.
I mean, King David they're the ones have an affair with your wife and then put you
these are the ones who brought the kingdom down, where it was these pagan kings who brought it. In fact, some of the statements, when you hear some of the things that these pagan kings said about our God, it puts the others to shame.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to quit being religious and being believers. There's a difference between being a believer and being religious. And faith is not being religious. Yeah. Okay? We've got to get over that. You get people that show up in church and and go through the motions and outwardly, and they're doing all of this, but deep down they don't have faith. They're fearful. They'll backbite. They'll reject people based on whether it's color, economic status, whether it's the way they talk, the way they dress, the car they drive, where they live, you name it, what they eat. The craziest things. It's funny, Christians will reject people based on the smallest things. Mm-hmm. I don't like the way your hair is. I don't like what shoes you wear. I mean, wear those pants, that dress. The thing the thing that's written on your shirt. I mean, I don't know. It's like a bunch of women. I know I'm going to get it for be a chauvinist pig now because but it's like crazy. In fact, there's a scripture that keeps coming to my mind in Isaiah 3. Go back and check me out. Isaiah 3. I'm not going to quote the verse, but Isaiah 3, when Isaiah is prophesying about the ending of Israel, God's judgment on Israel, and what he says, women and children shall rule them. In that time, he's prophesying that when your women and children rule you. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening right now in America. Women and children rule you.
So, yeah, my son was going on a youth Bible, well, actually it was a youth trip, where they're all in the bus, and he chartered this bus where it had the DVD player and you could watch movies in that. And so the youth pastor's wife had to screen which movies, and if it had any vulgar word in it, couldn't watch it. One of the movies that did pass her test was the movie You've Got Mail, where they're all sleeping around each other and moving from partner to partner. That was okay for the youth to see. But don't you say a vulgar word. Now, listen, there is the commandment about, taking the Lord God's name in vain. That's not vulgarity.
Right.
Okay? That's actually exploiting God's name for your own vain purposes.
Right.
In that. Now, I'm not supporting vulgar and base language, but let's just have some propriety here. This is, what did Jesus say? You swallow a camel and strain at a gnat.
Right. Because
we get our priorities out of order.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. I joked about the sound engineer at our church. If he once was caught saying one of the unspoken words you can't say because it's too vulgar, they said, leave and don't come back. Yet, at the pastoral staff meeting, was nothing but a gossip session for some times. I know, because sometimes things got back to me that only came through that, and they got it wrong in their little gossip session. Yeah, you don't like it when other people gossip about you, Pastor, but look at yourself. Okay.
Man.
I'm getting it off my chest.
What are we
today.
doing here? Yeah, that's what this is here today. Yeah. This is a...
So, yeah, and hey, it's a little bit of sports here.
Well, wait, yeah, before we get to sports,
okay.
we'll have time for sports because, I want to talk about some stuff. But, hey, I did want to discuss this situation, speaking of Christians and what's going on there in the Christian world. Here it is. Chris Smith, he's a Republican congressman from New Jersey.
Very familiar. Been fighting pro-life issues way back in the 80s.
Right. He's a really godly man, really good Christian guy, solid guy.
But socially, he's not a conservative. I mean, economically, not a conservative at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's from New Jersey. Yeah,
New Jersey, correct. Anyway, he sent a letter to the Biden White House, and in this kind of falls also into what kind of swallowing camels and gagging at gnats. Mm-hmm. We're so concerned about what's that little country over there between Hungary and Russia? Ukraine, that's it. Oh. No, I'm just joking.
I haven't heard much in the news.
I know. This is no. This is about Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan has a lot of Christians.
Yeah,
they're actually, man, my mind is spacing on me here today. They're called, this article here should have it. It's not in here. It's the people, they're in Turkey. They're called
Armenians.
Armenians, thank you. Mm-hmm. Gee, it's such an easy one.
Well, you have them. You also have Kurds over there, too.
Right, the Kurds, and a lot of Kurds are Armenians.
And these are tribes we're referring to.
Right. But the Armenians are generally Christian. And they're in Azerbaijan, the Nagorno-Karabakh, in that region, there are over 100,000 Armenians, and they're being starved out by the Azerbaijan government, and they're not allowing them to get food. The Azerbaijan government is not allowing them to get food. They're starving them out, and so Smith has written to the Biden government, hey, you need to let these people get some food.
Yeah.
And in light of the compelling and urgent testimony provided, I respectfully urge you to immediately clarify that the United States does not tolerate, facilitate, or participate in negotiations over genocide and to publicly inform Azerbaijan that unless it immediately lifts its blockade of Nagorno-Karabakh, the United States will take action through the United Nations to refer the matter to the International Criminal Court for investigation and prosecution, he wrote. And he sent this to President Biden. And what he did, he was referencing to a testimony from Luis Moreno Ocampo, former chief prosecutor from the International Court. And he had testified saying there's a reasonable basis to believe that Azerbaijan's blockade of the Lachen corridor constitutes genocide, and that Azerbaijan's president, Ilham Aliyev, voluntarily, knowingly, and willingly created conditions that calculated to destroy 100,000 Armenians living in the region. So you've got 120,000 people in this region of Azerbaijan that are starving to death because the government won't allow food to get to them. So, again, this is one of these situations where we're so focused a lot of times on our own needs, our own issues, our own problems that we're not seeing, and that there are Christians, and not just Christians, but there are people all over the world right now suffering.
Yeah. In Ukraine, I don't think anybody's accusing Putin of wanting to commit mass genocide. And yet, look at the trillions we've sent there. Where this is mass genocide in Azerbaijan, which, by the way, is one of the more oil-rich areas of the old Soviets.
Think about it. Yeah, I mean, you got 120,000. Mm-hmm. You could take $100 million, not billion, just 100 million, 1/10 of a billion, and spend it on food. Mm-hmm. Yes, and just bring it in there. Mm-hmm. And do you think the Azerbaijan government is going to deny the U.S. from coming in, bringing relief? Yeah. An official government relief, sanctioned relief effort to come in and feed these people.
Yeah,
we're gonna drop food in, and we're sending people with it.
Can I ask? Have you heard anything about Putin's response to this development? Is he taking
which
position
development
in Azerbaijan, the Armenian genocide?
No, because Azerbaijan is down farther. It's in
but it is an old Soviet republic that is split up. But what I'm getting at is, I wonder if we shouldn't do an airlift and move in a bunch of those people to Ukraine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Kill two birds in one stone.
Yeah, but see, but the problem is then, but will the Ukrainians take them?
At this point, I think we dictate the terms of the aid we're sending.
But see, it's easier done than that. I mean, these people probably don't want to leave. That's their home.
Well, it's their historical home is more the Caucasus mountain range.
Well, for all intents and purposes now, this is their home. So why should they have to leave? Yeah. When the easy thing right now, the immediate need is to eat.
Yeah,
we just want some food.
But it would take an invasion at this point, because if you are violating the dictates of the Azerbaijan government,
right? No, I mean, all we're saying is, look, we're coming in. We tell the government, if you want, because I guarantee you, what's happening right now is they're getting aid from the U.S. I guarantee you, Azerbaijan is one of the countries getting aid. Mm-hmm. I guarantee Putin is not saying you can't bring food to these people in Azerbaijan, especially since he is a newly recommitted Christian.
Well, he's so concerned about the people in eastern Ukraine that because they speak the Russian language, he has a right to dictate and rule over them and take that land just to assure it.
You're mixing oil and water here.
I'm trying to get to a point that I haven't made yet.
Well, I know you're always doing that, and let's just keep things as they are. Yeah. Okay, the people in Ukraine are Russians that want to be Russian. Okay, these Christian Azerbaijanis don't want to be Russian. They want to be Azerbaijani. Armenians is what they want to be. Okay, so they could care less about Putin, about any of that. So they're not asking Putin. All they want right now is, we don't want to be Russian. We just want food. Okay,
Right.
All right. So all that needs to happen is for the U.S. to somehow get them some food. And all we have to do is say, look, Azerbaijan, feed us, give us some food. Now, probably what would happen and may happen if Putin gets a hold of this, if he's smart, like he's done in Africa now,
There you go.
is for Putin to say, oh, is this happening? Whatever the premier of Azerbaijan is again, you let that food in.
Right.
Or you're next.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you even hint that maybe that's a solution, you might bring Putin around to having some love of God in him to feed these people.
Yeah, that is.
And I only use the historical perspective of an airlift like that. You remember when the government of Ethiopia collapsed, and the timing was impeccable in like tens of thousands of Ethiopian Jews got airlifted out of there. You're in that 48 hours of chaos where we weren't sure who's running the country. And they got the Ethiopian Jews who wanted to go to Israel. They got them to Israel. So I'm just saying, if that's where your heart is at, if you're Christians and you're being persecuted by, let's say I don't know whether it's Islamic or Hindu, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
Islamic, yeah. Then, then you do have an option there. Because, we've seen that kind of fighting.
And see, that may be the issue, too, with Putin, because, he's having issues with, what's that part of Russia?
Well, Chechnya.
Chechnya, yeah.
Right, just right in the middle of the Caucasus Mountains.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if Azerbaijan is a heavily Muslim part, which I'm not sure, I don't know what they are, but... yeah, so.
Yeah, most likely, because all that Caucasus Mountain region, my son was a YWAM missionary there in the Caucasus Mountains, and he said about 200 years ago, they all became Islamic, and they're very nominal Islam.
Yeah, I just don't, my geography is not good enough to know where Azerbaijan is, so I'm sure you can figure it out.
Yeah, and, the Armenians... I remember Demas Zakarian spoke to us at Raymond. He told some of the history of his Armenian heritage. He said they were actually the first kingdom to officially adopt Christianity as a state religion. He said, and that was like just maybe 4 decades after Christ finished his ministry on earth. It was really quick. And if you go to Bethlehem today, the chapel where Jesus was born is an Armenian church. They have very good working relationship with the Eastern Orthodox and the Roman Catholics. So they have pretty generally goodwill with all Christian denominations, the Armenians.
Yeah, and of course one of the major blights in history is the Armenian genocide in Turkey.
Yeah.
The Turks killed, I think, 15 million of them or something there. And I think it was 1916 when that happened. It was there in the early 1900s. It was and it's funny because everybody, made a big deal about the Jewish genocide in Germany and in Russia, but you never hear about the Armenian genocide.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yep.
You never hear about the slaughter of the Christians.
Yeah, my dad fought in Korea alongside some Kurds, which are also another ethnicity in Turkey. He said, nobody fights like the Kurds fight. He just thought it was just amazing. But Azerbaijan is, basically you got Georgia between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea. Georgia, Azerbaijan, right next to each other. So it's about half of that Caucasus.
And Ukraine would be on the north of it.
No, Ukraine is on the other side of the Black Sea. because up at the top of the Black Sea.
Oh,
you got
so it's on
Crimea.
the east side.
Yeah, Ukraine's up here on the north side, really the north shore of the Black Sea.
Oh,
The east shore is Georgia, and then about halfway over the Black Sea, you switch over to Azerbaijan. In Armenia, actually is right next door. There is a nation of Armenia. And so really, that's, if you're going to airlift them anywhere, that's the ideal place.
right. And where's Turkey?
And that was the thing. Turkey hates these bunch,
Oh, yeah.
both the Kurds and the Armenians. And I think what happened was Armenia got some independence from what used to be Turkey controlled. I mean, if you go all the way back to the Ottoman Empire, the Turks controlled everything.
Yeah.
You know.
We're doing a little geography study here.
Yeah, so just pull up Google Maps and you can see what we're talking about. But it's really interesting. I've been reading a novel about this because the ethnicities. Like my son was saying on the Caucasus Mountain region, he says within 100 miles of the town Nalchik where he was at, there's over 100 languages spoken.
Wow.
He said he would travel just 10 miles out of town, and they speak a different language. It's very unique. It's very hard for Russia to control.
That sounds like Louisiana.
So, anyway, it's an interesting deal, but beautiful. Oh, my goodness. Some of those beautiful languages.
Oh, yeah. What, the beautiful language or the countryside?
The country.
Oh, yeah. No,
it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. It's prime real estate.
And to be a little bit carnal here, the Caucasus people were considered some of the most handsome. It's where the term Caucasian comes from, Eddie. The Caucasus, yeah.
Well, you proud honky.
Yeah.
No.
Well, it's because on the north side of the mountain range, you had a completely different ethnicity. Yeah. See, that mountain range, the Russians actually burrowed a tunnel to get through there. That's how come Ossetia, Georgia was trying to help Ossetia get free, and the Russians came through that tunnel and took out Georgia. I mean, Georgia still exists, but they've had their hands slapped pretty hard.
So that for your little history and geographic lesson today.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible area, and I've learned so much just from my son being over there. Can I talk?
Hey, yeah, I was going to say.
I had a little bit of economics I wanted to discuss.
Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about education.
Yes, go ahead.
But no, let's do your economics.
Well, yeah, we've got two factors going on here, and there's a huge upheaval that you can blame both Trump and Biden on this, but especially Biden, because what Trump did in economic stimulus in the COVID crisis, I consider that even constitutional. In our Constitution, it says, if the government takes something from you, they have to give you just compensation. It's part of eminent domain, which is in our U.S. Constitution. If they shut down your business, your ability to go to work, and everything, I believe there is a moral obligation to that. So the stimulus that Trump issued, I have no problem with that. Biden just poured on massive stimulus after that, and it led to inflation because you had two things going on. Remember, in free enterprise, market is a balance of supply demand. When you got lots of supply, not much demand, all of a sudden deflation happens. The price drops, but when you don't have enough supply and you got demand, especially when it's artificially stoked through stimulus dollars, printing money, then you have pickup trucks selling for $100,000. And, the car dealerships back in 2001, they couldn't get a vehicle in, and people are waiting, and they're bidding wars, and they're bidding the prices up. And what's happened is you got people that if they didn't lose their job, and all of a sudden they got enough money for a down payment. But what can they do a down payment on? an $80,000 pickup, a minivan that's, for $50,000, $60,000. And so they take out these loans that they can't keep up payments on. They had no money coming out, no problem getting the down payment. But now you've got a repo crisis on vehicles that is really difficult. And then you got the other factor, the other big investment, even bigger, is you got these families that all of a sudden a young couple might have $5,000 in stimulus money they just came upon. They didn't lose their job, but now they got money to enter the housing market. They can get out of leasing the apartment and finally have the American dream. And so you got that going on. At the same time, you've got all these big investment funds realizing that inflation's coming, and what they always do is they put the money into real estate as a hedge against inflation. So you got houses just about doubling in the last 4 years in price. In many markets it did. So where I'm getting at, Eddie, a study came out just last winter that showed Oklahoma actually has the most favorable housing conditions. But that doesn't mean it's favorable. At that time, they were using numbers from 2020, and they showed that Oklahoma is the only state where the average median income could afford to buy a house. In fact, they listed Tulsa as the number one place to buy a house for middle income. But what's going to happen to housing? Because now you got people that the stimulus money's gone. They blew through it. And now you got inflation went nuts, so the interest rates is up. And you got people not wanting to sell their house to move up because they currently have a 2.5% mortgage. And if they upgrade or even move because of a job or something, they'll have to get a new loan. And now all of a sudden you're trading that 2.5% for a 7% loan. Yeah. And you're stopping people's ability to grow, to move, to transfer, to get another job in another city. See, I'm getting at is we got a lot of things going on, and what we really need is to find a way to make the American dream more accessible. Because historically, home ownership has always been about 62%. We ran into a crash in 2008 because the government, and Democrats and Republicans are responsible for this, tried to artificially get it up to 70% from 62. So you're actually inflating it 10% over that 62%, more than 10%. And those are 10% that normally couldn't afford a house. You finagled to say, okay, you're approved. And then you had foreclosures. Yeah, Bush and the Democrats, because the Congress really was pushing through that.
But Bush, his dream was for everybody to be able to afford a house.
Yes. Well, it's, everybody's, right? Democrats for it too. But when they pressured lenders to do this and said, that's okay, we will guarantee it, FHA, Fannie Mae will cover it and everything. And so then you had this crash. And that's, remember Pete Santelli, the famous Tea Party speech on the mercantile trading room, where he says, we're just going to give people their house. All they have to do is say, can't afford the mortgage? Fine. Here's the house. It's free. And he just blew up over that. And thus the Tea Party started. He said, send tea bags to them, right? So anyway, I don't know what the solution is, but we've got real financial problems here.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, okay, who couldn't see this coming? Okay. Everybody was talking about, and again, the Republicans caved along with the Democrats. Mm-hmm. They wanted to go from a $7.50 minimum wage to $15 an hour. Mm-hmm. So what happens? Walmart, Target, you name them. Okay, grocery stores. Okay, you've got 100 people. Okay, you're paying them $7.50 an hour. I'm just just go with me on this. Not everybody makes $7.50 an hour, but all of a sudden you're paying $15 an hour. You've doubled what you're having to pay everybody. That's just a minimum wage. The bulk of the people there are making around that. But let's say they're not. Okay, we're going to use that figure. But now you're paying them. Walmart's going to, okay, we're going to pay them $15 an hour. They went with it. So what happens? The people that were making $15 an hour, you can't keep paying them. The managers, the supervisors, different people that have been there longevity. You can't leave them at $15 an hour. So what do you have to do? You have to bump them to $25 an hour, now $30. Okay, so now everything in the store, employee-wise, has doubled. Your overhead is now doubled from where it was. You can't keep selling bacon at $3.95 a pound. You're going to have to sell it for $7.95 a pound. So everybody's wondering, well, why is my bacon all of a sudden more? Why is this and this more? The farmer out here, he has got to pay more for his fertilizer.
Sure. Yeah.
The electric company for power has got to pay their people more. Everything, the prices have gone up because you're paying people double. So basically, your $7.50 to $15 an hour now is no longer $15 an hour. You're soon going to be right back where you were at your $7.50 an hour.
Exactly. So we're back. We're playing the same game that we failed at in the 70s, because the 70s is when we did those minimum wage hikes.
We went from $3.50 to
$2.35. Yeah.
To 6 something and then to some. Yeah. But what gets me is that people are so stupid they don't realize that. Now, what people don't understand, when you have your wages low, like if you keep wages low, minimum wage, when you keep minimum wage low, it means they can afford to pay more for promotions, right?
Sure.
If I'm paying my entry level at $165 to $250 an hour, that means I can pay my managers, my next level managers, that much more as a step up.
Yeah, well,
I'm paying my minimum guys twice that, 3 times that, then all of a sudden my margins start getting squeezed.
Every job I had up till I was 18, and I've worked several of them, no longer exists. These were jobs that catered to teenagers. I delivered newspapers. I carried out groceries and put them in people's car. You believe grocery stores used to actually do that for you? I was a checkout clerk. I worked McDonald's. Now they have kiosks taking your order, right?
Did you get paid to take groceries out?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't. It was tips only.
Oh, no. In fact, it was my first and only union job. But get this. After 4 weeks on the job, you had to join the union because it was closed shops. This is Minnesota, right? They were not a right-to-work state. My initiation fee to join the union was a one-time $100. Now, keep in mind, I'm only working at $2.50 an hour because minimum wage was $2.35. I was making $2.50. And in my town, that was status symbol, right? And only working about 20 hours a week. So you do the math. I was having to pay a full month's salary for a summer job carrying out groceries. The unions were exploiting us peons. They were getting a good deal for the butcher and a good deal, for some of the other people running, but for the peons carrying groceries, no, they weren't out there for us. So, but here's what I'm saying, Eddie: market forces work. When there's more jobs and there are people to fill them, guess what happens to wages? They go up.
Sure.
Back in the .com bubble in 98, I remember I was at McDonald's or Wendy's one day, and we got this poor lady. She didn't know. I mean, I could tell they pulled her out of mothballs, and she couldn't get any order right. And I turned around to the line behind me. I said, folks, this is what you get with low unemployment. There are people who have jobs that normally wouldn't. and this is why we were standing in line here like this.
Yeah, so I had my mic muted, by the way, that last little diatribe for the last 5 minutes. But no, yeah, so basically the whole reason that we're in the pickle we're in, I predicted this way back when we went. I was probably still on KFAQ when this went from $7.50 to $15 an hour.
Well, it's not the law, but many states have done it.
Right, but and then to keep up, a bunch of them to be,
Politically correct,
politically clear. Well, we're going to beat them to it, but it did two things. Okay, one thing, they started firing people. Mm-hmm. They cut down because you can't pay everybody double what you were paying. Mm-hmm. You have to have less people. Yeah. And then secondly, the people that were making $15 an hour, you've got to boost them now to $25 or $30 an hour. Yeah. And then of course you've got to charge more for everything you have. And so all of a sudden people are surprised that we have inflation at 9.5%. Mm-hmm. I mean, it went back down, but it's going back up again. It's 4.5%, I think now, and it's going up every month again. So, I mean, people are stupid if they think that we're not going to have inflation when you double the price of everything. Wages are doubling, and you expect to still be able to buy everything for the same price. Come on, people, get real. Use your heads. It doesn't work that way.
The average household has lost $7,800 in the last year due to inflation. Now, think about that $5,000 that you got in your stimulus check. How's that feeling now that you spent probably double that?
You know who really is making out on it? The tax man.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're collecting extra tax. And that's the other thing. A lot of these people jumped from one tax bracket to a new tax bracket, and they got their tax bill and said, whoa, wait a minute. Why am I paying all this tax now? Yeah. And when they look at the end, the net result of their price hike, they're doing worse than they were doing when they were making that.
So when the government tweaks with the market, and there's two ways they've done it. They did it back in the 70s, and they're doing it again now under Biden. They mess with minimum wage, and now all of a sudden, I like what a Best Buy employee, high school kid, said, well, just got out of a store meeting. I was giving good news and bad news. The good news is my hourly wage doubled from $7.50 an hour to $15 an hour. But they cut my hours from 30 down to 10. That's how it works.
No, I know. And that's what I'm saying.
I used to pump gas.
Yeah.
That job's not there anymore.
Yeah.
I used to deliver papers. I used to carry out groceries. All that. I mean, now they don't. I was in Lowe's yesterday. They have one checkout that has a human being. Yeah. And then the rest are a bunch of self-checkout kiosks, and you got one person roaming, trying to fix
most of your Walmarts in town, all the Walmart groceries, they're no real. It's all self-checkout.
Yeah, they usually have one, or sometimes they say, well, you have to go to the customer service desk.
Well, yeah, right.
See, when I was a retail manager, our motto of the store is, our entire store is customer service. Customer service isn't one little desk back in the corner. The whole store is, and that was the mentality of it. But so that was one of the things. They messed with wages artificially, and it created nothing but inflation, upheaval, and people had less money if they still had a job. The other thing they messed with is home ownership, and the crash of 2008, which Oklahoma didn't get out of until 2018. Remember, we were running billion-dollar budget deficits. Even in 2017. We had to hike our taxes way up to do it because there's a delayed impact. So the decisions of the 70s, Nixon was part of it, and then Gerald Ford, liberal Republican, leftist Republican, and then Jimmy Carter went whole hog into it. This Keynesian theory of stoking the economy with, all these government things. It didn't get rid of inflation and interest rates until after Reagan left office.
Yeah.
It took 10 years.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the things, one of the knocks on Reagan, that his budget deficits were really high, that because he was trying to bring everything down, but he wasn't able to collect enough revenue to offset it. And so, like you said, it didn't kick in until after. In fact, the real beneficiary of all of the Reagan policies was Clinton.
Yeah.
It didn't everything didn't really kick in until.
That's a good point. But no, Reagan addressed it. He said, I'd make a deal with Tip O'Neill. We would have, cuts that went along with the tax breaks. And he said, in my presidency, our tax collections, even though the rates were down, the collections doubled because of what was called, the curve. He had an economic guru who talked about this bell curve, finding that sweet spot. Because when you overtax, you end up collecting less.
Right.
When you undertax, you don't get Laffer. Art Laffer, the Laffer curve. And that's finding that. And Laffer was one of those philosophers on economics that Reagan went with what he said. And it was true. What they didn't get was the cuts from Tip O'Neill in Congress. Right. And Reagan did not fight those battles. Now, Pat Buchanan said, he strongly said, do not sign it. He said, but Social Security payments won't go out. He says, no, you get to the microphone and say, send me a clean bill on Social Security. I'll sign it in front of you. Because that puts it all of a sudden on the Democrats. Right. And they were holding senior citizens hostage. And Reagan fell for it. That's where I think Reagan.
That's what they do every election.
Yeah.
What gets me is, how do the Republicans continually? Well, I know the answer. It's the media.
Oh yeah, I mean
that's what it is.
They want to grovel to get acceptance from the media, except Trump.
Yeah,
Trump, and I need the Republican Party to learn a lesson from Trump.
Yeah,
and I thought it was true with DeSantis and how he handled the COVID policy. I thought he was doing it, and I still think he did very well on it. Going back to your New Mexico thing you're talking about with, this dictating by edicts. Because, what we did in Oklahoma when we had that first crisis with COVID, the legislature followed the Constitution and said, okay, the governor in this state does not get to declare an emergency. He calls upon the legislature to pass a finding, and then you get 30 days, and you get an oversight committee of the legislature that can yank those emergency powers at any time. But it has to be renewed after 30 days. So you know what Stitt did? He waited until the legislature was dissolved 2 weeks after the election, and the new legislature didn't convene until January. And then he just declared all the taverns and restaurants have to shut down, at 11 p.m. And a friend of mine fought him over it, and we threw a party for the guy. A tavern down here, not really close to your house. Actually, 101st and Mingo, PJ's.
PJ's. Yeah.
And man, it was amazing. Frank Urbanik is the attorney's name, and he got 6 taverns and restaurants in a dance hall to file suit, and they just owned Governor Stitt's legal team. And the judge threw it out, and finally Stitt capitulated on that. So we threw a party for him. Rhonda and Tim were there, in fact, a bunch of us. And the tavern owner, in front of everybody, announced it, because this was a big party. Congratulations. Hands him a check for $10,000. He said, I would have lost more than that. And my employees would have had to go find other jobs, and I'd have to hire again.
He handed who $10,000?
The attorney was doing it pro bono.
Oh, he handed the attorney, right.
And so just one tavern owner cuts him a check saying, thank you. Wow. Because that was a liberty-minded attorney doing the right thing. But anyway, so we we got to avoid this kind of tyranny, this kind of deep state.
No, you're right. You're right. It doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat.
And I still think Stitt may be the best governor we've ever had.
Yeah.
But I think he owes a lot of his legacy to Frank Urbanek opposing, because this is one place where Stitt listened to the wrong advice. So anyway, so I just wanted to talk on economic issues here, and when the government steps in, I never seen success long term come out of government interference in it. Let the market do its thing.
No, you're right. No, exactly. No, that's the funny thing, that somehow money finds a way of balancing itself out.
Yeah. Oh, I got to quote Rush on this, because we were talking about housing. This is when the Democrats were trying to put all this money into government assistance in housing, buying the house and everything. And he looked at it and he said, the Home Builders Association nationally said 30% of the cost of a new home, this is back in the 90s, is eaten up just in government compliance. And it's not actually the cost of something. It's just doing everything, all the inspections, all the permits, all the things in all aspects of it. And Rush said this. He says, 30% of the cost of a home is eaten up by government. The average American wouldn't need help from the government buying a house if it wasn't because of the government being in the way,
Sure.
jacking the price up.
No, exactly. No, that's a no-brainer. The government is probably America's worst enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, we really are.
Yeah. I like how one Liberty guy says, the difference between a war and a revolution, when it's a war, is when the government tells you who the enemy is. It's a revolution when you figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
Jefferson said the duty of a patriot is to protect the people from their government.
Yeah. And we can't figure that out. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
And right now, let me bring this up real quick.
Yeah.
Did you watch the game Thursday, Chiefs in Detroit?
I did.
Did you see the beginning?
Yes, the pregame stuff.
Yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit. I posted on because I was so upset that I thought they were not going to show the national anthem, but they did. But they started out with
a children's choir.
Well, yeah, and it was the Black national anthem.
Oh, is that what it is?
And it's called "Let Every Voice, Lift Every Voice and Sing." Is the name of the song. Yeah. But it's been adopted as the Black national anthem. And now, if they're going to start having to sing that before every game, I'm upset anyway. But I thought the way it looked like they did that and they were done because the team then ran out on the field. Okay. But then there was a break and they did have the national anthem with Natalie Grant and then the flyover.
Boy, was that awesome.
Yeah.
That woman's got lungs.
Oh, well, yeah, Natalie Grant, yeah, she does.
Yeah.
And the big flyover. So
yeah, that was a B-2 bomber.
Yeah, B-2, yeah.
Because they're housed there in Missouri.
Right. And
I was shocked.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Chiefs chewed and blew it. They had Tony, the one receiver, dropped 3 balls. He dropped maybe it was 4 passes. Just one guy, and then a couple of others. Blake Bell was one, sadly the Belldozer dropped one too. Sadly, and then
one. It's the receiver's fault for the interception.
Well, it's the same guy.
Yeah,
the same guy.
Yeah.
So,
blew the game. Now I had on my fantasy team, I had the young rookie Gibbs from Detroit, and he had a touchdown. He slipped. Nobody touched him. And it was at the 10-yard line. It was a red zone thing. And I'm like, So I suck at fantasy football. But,
But before we get fully into football,
hey, I want you
education-wise.
Yeah, but just a second. One more thing on this national anthem, Eddie.
The Black national anthem?
Yeah. Is there anything about God and country? Is there anything about the United States in it? How is it an American national anthem?
It's not.
Okay.
It's just
okay. here's where I want to put the blame on. Don't blame the Chiefs. Blame the TV station because it's their choice.
Oh, yeah.
What they air.
Well, it's the NFL. No, it's the NFL that has chosen to have them do this.
Now, that's true because those deals between the TV stations and the NFL, they are contractual, and they probably stipulate. It's probably...
Well, and the NFL would tell the teams, we're going to have you do these. Because here's my big issue, okay? So are we going to have a Hispanic national anthem? Are we going to play Viva la Raza?
We should if we.
How about the Native Americans? How about the Japanese, Chinese? I mean, are we going to have a national anthem for every nationality?
I bet there are more Germans than there are American tribes.
Yeah, in other words, are black people the only ethnicity in America that gets their own special ethnic national anthem?
Right. I think us Germans should.
Well, then go for it. But you're actually Flemish, so you don't count.
No, I am like 8 different national. I am actually I'm more German than I am Belgian.
So you should have 8 national anthems.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You see how insane this is?
Yeah.
What does Rush call it? Using the absurd to demonstrate the ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is ridiculous. There needs to be one national. That's why it's called a national anthem, not an ethnic anthem.
Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway.
Yeah, and that would be the way to describe it. Let's just call it the black ethnic anthem.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
We need a white ethnic anthem then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A Caucasian.
Yeah.
A Caucasianal anthem.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway.
Then we need an Asianal anthem.
Yeah. But, this is why I was reminded why I don't watch pro football.
Yeah, it's silly. It's totally stupid. I mean, it's stupid. And for NBC to do that and then for the NFL to try to placate one minority, and they're going to mess around and start this mess. Yeah. There's a video, I don't know if you've seen the little photo where Carrie Lake is sitting in her seat. It's an old one. It's from, I think, the Super Bowl because it was in Phoenix. And so she's just sitting there, like she's not. Everybody's standing up and for that anthem, and she's she's like this. She's not standing up for it,
right?
Because it's not the national anthem.
No, I would kneel for it.
I would probably kneel with my back to it. Just say, do one of these.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything you could do.
Yeah.
No, hey. What was I going to? Oh, before, I've been wanting to get to education.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ryan Walters, the most hated man next to Donald Trump, and in Oklahoma, maybe more than Donald Trump, on Twitter or Twitex, as I call it, Twix, they're on him all the time. It's interesting, the things you see on there. The people, they're crazy. They're out of their minds because they don't care about facts. They don't care about anything. And I think we discussed Dylan Goforth before.
Yeah.
How he knows better. He knows better. He's bought and paid for now.
Well,
that's what he is.
Yeah, Dylan, let me help you out. You just forget all the articles you're writing about our superintendent, state superintendent. You just do 3 words, because this is all you're really saying. Walters is mean. That's all they got on him. That's all. They just did you see what he tweeted? Did you see what he said? He's mean. Okay, you don't like what he says.
Yeah.
That's right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, because honestly, Dylan is smarter than that. You know that. I know that.
He's manipulative.
Manipulated is more than anything, because it's just silly. It's sad. It's sad. I'm disappointed because someone that is intelligent as him to have sold out like that to attack someone like Ryan. The good news on Ryan Walters' end is that he's not giving in. Mm-hmm. He has that spirit of Trump. He's not giving in. He is standing up and going for it, and he's going to continue to fight the battle.
Sure,
he's going to fight the battle, and one thing I do applaud the governor for sticking with him.
Yeah,
that he's going to stay behind him, and they're going to see this through. I'm waiting for the audit and for it to be concluded, and I'm anxiously awaiting to what they find out, because I think we're going to find some real serious wrongdoing here. And I hope some heads roll, and it can't come soon enough. Can't come.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we're getting a forensic audit with a lot of involvement from our Attorney General's office. Because right now, I'm suspect of the objectivity of Cindy Byrd. She was kowtowing with Joy Hoffmeister, going after Epic, and I consider what she did just corrupt.
Yeah, and I hope that if she does get involved and expose herself, that it will expose her and let everybody see what she's really about, and we will get rid of her too.
Yeah. So absolutely. And I just was checking a text. A member of the state school board, a friend of ours, Don Burdick, we're trying to get him in. I offered him next week or the week after, because he said, let's try to do something later in September. So we'll see, because if we can get that. Burdick is not Ryan Walters. You can't blame him for the nasty tweets from Ryan Walters, but he's not Deborah Gist either. He's a person standing judgment, a man of particularly good judgment. I've known him since the early 90s, and I think we're going to hear some good things from him.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, just a warning, I probably won't be here in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I plan to see my grandkids in California.
Yeah.
And so I probably won't be here that weekend.
Yeah. Going to go to church with Marilyn Manson again, maybe?
No, that's in Southern California.
Teasing you.
This time I'm going with Gavin Newsom's family.
Oh, there you go.
No, actually, I have to tell you a funny story. My granddaughter played soccer against Gavin's kids.
Okay.
Yeah. Beat him.
All right, there you go.
Which warmed my heart.
Yeah. So not a whole lot of information on education. We're waiting on.
Yeah,
it, but,
right. We're looking.
But I do want to renew my call. Trump may need your help next year, but Ryan needs your help now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of next year, I'm still sticking by my prediction that the ultimate Democrat candidate for president will be Michelle Obama, that she will ultimately be the Democrat nominee, because black people are leaving Biden's side in droves, regardless of the Sambos and Quimbos that you see on TV sticking up for Biden every day. But he's losing the black community, and they can't afford that.
Yeah.
And therefore, I believe they will pull out the stops and put forth Michelle.
Yeah, I was sitting by some of our black delegates to the Republican State Convention a couple of years ago. At the state convention, Paula Price, Dr. Price, pastor here, and she was there as well, a delegate. But I asked a couple of these women, I said, so what do you think when, Biden says, if you don't vote Democrat, you ain't black? And one woman says, that is the most racist statement I've ever heard in my life. She says, Biden has always been a racist. I mean, it's just,
They know it. The only reason that the ones who continue to vote for him vote is because they're getting something from him. Yeah. That's all. They're bought and paid for. Hey, listen, let's wrap it up with some sports.
Yeah.
Dion is playing Nebraska today.
Yeah.
So we'll get to see what happens there. Now, here's an interesting thing. My team, Texas Tech, lost to Wyoming. Oh my goodness!
I sat there watching the scores last Saturday. I said, Eddie has got to be feeling a lot of fun.
I sat up and watched, but I finally went to bed because it was a late game. And it went into overtime. They lost in the second overtime.
Yeah, I know. That was just
they made so many mistakes.
The TCU Colorado game was overtime too. Or was it? No, it was.
No, they won.
It was back and forth.
Right, but what happened? Tech took off 14-0, just ran up, boom, 2 quick scores, and then just no. Now here's what's interesting. Okay, so Tech lost to Wyoming.
Yeah,
but the real surprise, Baylor lost to Sam Houston State.
Yeah,
and so here's the funny thing: both of those teams, Tech today plays Oregon. Mm-hmm. Okay. And at the same time, Baylor is playing Utah, 2 Pac-12 powerhouses. So I think we're both in trouble. We're going to be 0-2. I'm predicting Utah and Oregon today.
Yeah.
And then, but the rest of the Big 12 is whoever scheduled these games, especially these 2 games right after the others. I don't know who was doing the scheduling.
You have to do that a couple of years in advance.
Well, here's my question: why would you schedule Wyoming at Wyoming? Do you know what the elevation of Wyoming is?
Laramie, it's close to Mile High.
No, it's 7,200.
Oh, it's that high. Wow.
It's like a mile and a half.
Yeah, I guess my brother lives in Cheyenne. It's lower altitude, about a mile high.
I couldn't believe it when they showed that it was 72. I said, "Are you kidding me?"
That's up in the Medicine Bow Mountains.
Why would you? The first game of the year, too. You guys aren't quite in shape, and you're scheduling a game at a mile and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, no wonder. I mean, whoever that person needs to be fired. Whoever at Texas Tech scheduled that for the first game.
Wyoming normally isn't this good.
No, but I don't care. I don't care who it is. You don't schedule a game.
They didn't respect him, My brother's a big fan of that team because he lives there.
Of Wyoming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been to Laramie.
You've got to respect. I don't care who you're playing. You have to respect them.
That's true. Remember, what was it? Central Michigan Chippewas against OSU, and they got spanked.
Well, I don't think they got spanked. I think they got cheated.
They did get cheated.
I think they won that
But you know what? That shouldn't even been close.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
But, the big thing, everybody is all about, Colorado. And I'm just saying, everything you're hearing about Deion Sanders in Colorado, he deserves every bit of that.
I saw the interview this morning with his son.
Yeah, Shador.
Shador and the other kid. What's interesting about the other kid, he plays both ways.
Yeah, Hunter, I think was his name. Or I forget his last name.
Yeah.
It begins with H. Yeah.
But anyway, they interviewed, and what I was amazed at is how just not just intelligent, but how mature.
Yes.
How aware these kids are. Mm-hmm. How pleasant they are. They're not the typical, yeah. I mean, they're very pleasant. They're happy. I mean, they're pleasant. They were smiling. They were happy. They knew how to speak. They knew how. I mean, it was like they were almost professionals, but not athletically professional, but professional in speaking to people. Right. It was amazing to see that they had been raised right. Let's put it that way. They were raised
there's that, but there's also a professional part of the communications that Deion Sanders is very good at. So I think they're learning that aspect of the sports, the business side.
Yeah,
you got to be well spoken.
Yeah,
the
one kid, they said I think he participated in 140 snaps last week.
Yeah.
140 snaps because he played defensive and off. Can you imagine? I mean, I guess at Colorado he's at that high altitude too. I mean, the pros cannot wait to get their hands on that guy.
Yeah,
he's a receiver, and that's what Deion did. Yeah, and he's created a clone of himself, basically.
Right, and that's one of the things. I want to explain real quick. when you train, marathon runners will do this, train at high altitude because it adjusts your body to where oxygenating. You're not huffing trying to get air to feed the machine. It's why the, what do they call it, the Himalayan guys, Sherpas, they live at those high altitudes so they can climb up Mount Everest without oxygen. With the other guys,
you know, one of the things that distance runners will do, I don't know if you know that, but they'll train at the high altitude.
Yeah.
And then they take their blood. Mm-hmm. They take their blood bags, and then when they come down, because it's oxygenated, and then when they come down, then they inject the blood at the lower altitude because it has more oxygen in it. Mm-hmm. They'll run because it gets their blood with more oxygen.
Yeah. Because what happens is your body, when you train for weeks and weeks, you produce more red blood cells because you need more, because red blood cells are what carries the oxygen. Right. White blood cells are which fight off infection. See, that's the downside of it too, is, you know, are you going to stay healthy enough? But so when you train at high altitude and then you go down to West Texas prairie, all of a sudden you got endurance.
Right.
And then a kid like, you know, the one who plays both sides to offense and defense, he can do that. Right. But if he had been training in Florida, I don't think he could.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. But see, that's why I think the West Texas kid going to 7,200 foot altitude, I think they just petered out.
I think you're right.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Whoever scheduled that game early on like that was stupid doing that. But anyway, that's that game. But the big game, which is, I don't know if it's on right now or Sunday, is Alabama and Texas.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that one does. What gets me, OU is playing, but it's on ESPN Plus, so you've got to have a subscription and go online and watch it or whatever. So
no, I think we're probably going to get better deals with our media because remember, it was University of Texas that screwed us over by launching their own Longhorn Network.
Right.
And that's why we lost Nebraska and Missouri and Colorado.
Right.
Because, you know, by the time Texas took their part out, all of a sudden the Big 12 as a package couldn't get the kind of money that the others did. Yeah. Oh, I found out Stanford and Cal did make it to the ACC.
Yeah.
Along with, was it SMU?
Yeah, SMU, that's a surprise. Mm-hmm. I'm happy for SMU. I think the Big 12 really should have taken SMU.
Well,
I was surprised because they were one of the original Southwest Conference teams, and I thought they really should have taken them with them.
Here's what it did for ACC. It gave them a Texas team. When you've got a Texas team, it's easier to recruit in Texas.
Right. But that does not negate the fact that the Big 12 should have taken SMU.
What I'm getting at is all the more reason to keep SMU away from ACC.
Oh, yeah, but what I'm saying is, but that's after the fact. Mm-hmm. That was after we had already rejected them.
I know.
We should have taken them early on.
We took a risk and we lost. Yeah, so, and this is a beautiful thing. Again, Deion Sanders could end up being the greatest high school or college football coach of all time. He's showing all the genius.
Wow.
Okay? Because this is a guy, remember, he played at Florida State. He was a Florida guy, and then he became a Dallas guy, right? Played for the Cowboys, won the Super Bowl.
And San Francisco, won a Super Bowl in San Francisco.
Okay, right. So get this. He moved from the Pac, or his school, he got them to move from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, which now has with Central Florida. Now we have a Florida team in there and all the Texas teams. For him, recruiting to Colorado is going to be a lot easier now.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's all recruit. If you can't recruit, you got nothing. That shows me another genius. Nobody has ever exploited the transfer portal like Colorado.
Did you see that, I think he needed $25 million was what they basically promised him. I think it's for him and all of his coaches.
Okay.
And they didn't have it. But that's what they promised him. But by game time of last week, they had the $25 million. Wow. So they basically wrote a note that they didn't have the money for. But the people had enough faith. Now, I'm sure that now they have much more than that. Everybody wants to give money to Colorado. All that alumni has kicked in now. By the way, I don't know if you know or the people at home know, the budgets for the athletic departments at universities. Did we talk about this before? Yeah. How they're separate from the academic, the school budget. So OU, for example, Bob Stoops, when he was there, or whoever the coach is now, they get paid a lot more than anybody else at the school, but that's a totally different corporation. It's a whole separate corporation, and they're on their own budget.
Yeah, but it didn't stop the Democrat caucus in the legislature from saying Bob Stoops is the top paid state employee.
Yeah.
Should that be that way? You know, he isn't paid by the state.
Yeah, that's a stupid thing for the Democrats to do.
Oh, of course it is.
Totally, for them to pick on.
It is.
He and what's his name out of it? Gundy.
Yeah. So
the top two employees.
And I got to say this. Now, with all the exposure that Deion Sanders is getting, being a Power 5 division head coach, his endorsements, TV commercials, media package, he's probably going to make close to $25 million just on that.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen the new Geico commercial?
Yeah.
With him in
Catches the news bear. Still got it?
Well, no, but the one I like is where they've got the goat sitting behind the desk, and he's wearing glasses.
Okay.
And he's doing all this stuff, and they're yelling. The duck is yelling at him, and they're saying, "Hilda, I got this." And this buffalo walks in.
Oh, yes.
Deion says, "Oh, wait, I got this." And a buffalo comes in.
Yeah.
And then the same says, "Who's that? You know, where's that? Where did it come from?"
See, that's beautiful cross marketing.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It was so cool. All of a sudden, saying, where did he come from? And then I can't remember what Deion says. Yeah. He said, "Oh, he's a friend of mine," or something like that. You know. But they bring in a buffalo. You know, it's ingenious stuff.
Yeah. No, Deion said, was it like 75 of his football players were not on the team last year?
Oh, 85.
85.
Oh no, 84 out of 90.
Yeah.
Yeah, only 6 held over from before. They either quit or he let them go.
Right, because there was like 50 of them. He just flat out said, "Enter the portal now."
Right.
You know, and of course he had the attrition. Remember, 1 out of 4 graduates on average. So, but yeah, so you've got all of that going on. Actually, it's more than 1 out of 4, because a lot of those guys only come there for like their junior, senior year. They're JUCO transfers, you know, and stuff. So
that's a whole new team. And what's amazing to me, you know, all those skill positions, well, most of the skill positions are black kids. Mm-hmm. But then when you look, you know, and you'll look at and you'll see these white kids, like especially the linemen. Mm-hmm. You know, you always get the big farm boys or something on offense. Mm-hmm. And so you see the kid run his touchdown, and then, you know, his big white lineman grabs him and throws him in the air. And, you know, and so that just shows that Deion is not creating a historically black school team out of Colorado. He's still getting the best that he can find.
Right.
And any kid in America that is a good player, he wants that. He doesn't care what color they are. He wants the best players in America to play for the university.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see him resurrect pretty much. Nebraska needs it now. That's who Colorado's playing today.
Minnesota beat Nebraska.
Yeah.
And Minnesota's never been great.
Yeah. And what's his name? Rule, the old Baylor coach, and he was at the Carolina Panthers. He's the new coach at Nebraska. Mm-hmm. They lost last week again.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry if we bore some of you people that aren't into
well, you know,
football, but these are things that
hey, we're men.
Yeah, and a lot of women like, and just in America, it affects, because some of these issues are more, for example, the NIL, you know, the name, image, and likeness deals that are made, and where that's going to end up with these kids. one of my favorite players is a kid named Sam Hartman. He was at Wake Forest.
Okay.
And his family had adopted this black kid. So he had this black adopted brother. And they'd grown up together, and they both ended up playing at Wake Forest.
Oh.
Well, Sam was the quarterback, and the black kid was his receiver.
Oh, okay.
Well, the black kid ended up dying. He got some disease. I don't know what it was, but he died. And so Sam always dedicates the game to the black kid. His brother died. Well, anyway, Sam graduated. And he transferred now. He's playing at Notre Dame. They got him at Notre Dame. Oh. He's going to be one of the high draft pick next year. But it's a good kid, and he's good. They ended up playing in Dublin, Ireland last week.
Yep.
And they ended up winning. They beat Navy. So that's one of the early games. So anyway, that's where it is. I do want to reiterate, though, pray for our nation. If you're a believer, believe that God is still in control. He sits on the throne. Nothing escapes him. I pray for pastors. Don't sit on the sidelines. If you study Jewish history, any history, faith is not separate from government. It's not. You can sit there and think that my job is to feed the church and not to get involved. You can't do that. You've got to get involved and get your people involved. I know Jesus said, "Let give unto Caesar what Caesar's, and unto God what is God," but you have to get involved. You have to get your people involved. The Jewish society was different than our society. The priests ruled. The priests were the government back in Jewish society.
The prophet Nathan, Esther, Mordecai. There are plenty of people God led to intervene in the affairs of government, to call government to account, call kings to account. You could say, well, Jesus didn't do this. Yeah, but you know what? Paul did. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's plenty. Everybody's got a different calling, a different purpose. Right. And this is the thing, and this is why I say you got to have a church that's more than just one man's vision, because there's way too much harvesting to be done. Can I ask you something? Are you a Christian nationalist?
Am I a Christian nationalist?
Yes, that's the new buzzword from the left media to try to discredit a person. So whether they're a Christian nationalist or Christian nationalism is the worst thing. It's the new racism.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. So nationalist means you support your nation, right? It's standing up for the America. It's rooting for the Olympic American team, right? It's like, these are us. We are a nation. Trump is proud of his nationalism. Mm-hmm. In fact, Obama was asked when first time he went to Europe, do you believe in American exceptionalism? He says, sure. Just like British should believe in British exceptionalism. That's nationalism.
Sure. If
be
not,
proud of your country.
Every 4 years at the Olympics, you
right.
see an example of it.
So what we've seen happen, and especially he's been exploiting sports, is the Megan Rapinos who undermine, who hate their country, and yet still demand their country pay them whatever the men's team gets, right? But it's hatred. It's the 1619 thing. What do you call it? Critical race. It's all anti-nationalism. It's all our nation is bad. Our nation is, it's part of the takedown of America.
So basically, what you're saying, are you a Christian and a nationalist?
Yeah, because now they've taken two terms that somehow the synergy of the two creates an evil thing, to be Christian and nationalist. And I'm like, I am a Christian first.
Right.
And then I support my nation.
Right.
As the apostles Paul and Peter said, honor them. Don't make the government's job hard.
Right. First, two things that I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to relate it to Nazism. Mm-hmm. They're trying to say that Nazis were Christian nationalists.
Okay.
But what they leave out from Nazi is that Nazi actually was socialists.
Yeah.
There was National Socialism. They know that most of America is too dumb or too ignorant of the fact that what Nazi really stands for. They want to say it stands for nationalism, and they've perverted the word nationalism, and like they have the word they're turning the word Christian into that. Mm-hmm. All of these things they're twisting all of democracy. They're perverting the word democracy. So with that, they're taking these two words now and turning Christian nationalism, making it into kind of Nazism. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to go out and explain to people what Nazism really is.
Yeah. I'm just, when you see this blatant attempt to make a term derogatory, kind of like toxic masculinity.
Right.
As if masculinity is a bad thing. You have to do it in small portions under the control of women leaders. Right. So like
delicious masculinity instead of toxic. Yeah.
Because when I was down here when Trump was in town, the big rally in June of 2000, and I watched the BLM deal
on Juneteenth.
The day after, and I'm standing next to the InfoWars guy, Oren Schroyer, which I said, "Notice it's women running this. All the men that they have up there, they're thugs, and that are all being told what to do by the women directing them behind them." Yeah. And it's the beta boys.
Isaiah 3.
The soy boys.
Women and children will lead them.
Yeah. And remember how proud we were of our country, even as we suffered from the 9/11 tragedies. And there was no great a symbol of our heroism than the firefighter. Mm-hmm. The guy who went up those stairs as people were scurrying down. And they died trying to save others. You don't find women naturally doing that like men do. The protector instinct. Now, I know a mama bear is a protector. I get that, And yes, you have that in humanity, not just, bears. But men will naturally protect women in ways women will not protect men.
Naturally. But we've perverted everything. So men are working against nature now. Mm-hmm. Everything's working against nature. So now it's like, do you remember Seinfeld, the episode where there was a fire that broke out in this, I don't know what they were doing, but George Costanza was in this room.
It had to be George.
And he was throwing the women and children out of the site. Let me out of here. He was throwing everybody out of the way so he could get out of there because he wanted to get out of the fire before all the women and children. And that's kind of the girly boy, is what is what we've become.
Yeah, it's just earlier in the show today we were talking about something you said. And I said, let's bring up that Christian nationalism. You know what? I'm a Christian and I'm a nationalist, and deal with it, okay?
Yeah. No. I'm proud to be a Christian. I'm proud to be an American.
Yeah.
Of German birth.
Yeah.
I mean. I was born in Germany, but I'm proud to be an American. Yeah. I mean, it's, what's funny, some of the proudest Americans, some of the greatest nationalists are Cubans. Mm-hmm. People that were born in Cuba that have become Americans.
Yeah.
Some of the most nationalistic people are the people that are immigrants.
Yeah.
Recent immigrants.
Yeah.
That have put their hand up and sworn to become citizens of this great nation. This is what the problem is with the Democrat Party. They have perverted. They're a party of perversion. Yep. And that's what we need. That's a great message right there. Party of perversion. Good. All right, everybody. I guess we're going to wrap it up. So thank you for staying with us, and hopefully we'll Speak to you next week.
Great.
God bless everybody. Talk to you then.